No, you have to do it, dude. Come on.
Okay. Bonjour mes amis et bienvenue à un autre épisode de Video Game Book Club. Je suis votre hôte et avec moi, toujours le meilleur, Benjamin le Tizol Toups. Ben, comment ça va?
Ça va bien. Mon ami Jean-Paul, je suis très excité pour parler de Expedition 33.
33!
Mais avant, je dois manger un peu de pain parce que j'ai très faim.
Incredible performance by Ben. That was so good. I think if we recorded this podcast only in French, it would take 9 hours, I think. So for the viewers at home, we're gonna do it. No.
Yeah, that's all the French I've got.
That's it. Welcome to Video Game Book Club. You already know us as the show where we pick, we play, and we discuss a video game each and every month. I'm JP, and this is Ben, and today we are talking about Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. As you can tell from our outfits, I hope you're enjoying what we're wearing. I hope you enjoyed Ben eating some pain. And Ben, I love this game. This game. I don't think we've ever opened an episode by saying, oh my God, I am so pilled on this game. Give me the red pill every single day. I am so in it. I love this game.
This is genuinely an incredible game. Yeah. I feel like a lot of times when huge games like this come out and there's a ton of hype, everyone's talking, oh, this is an incredible game. This is my game of the year, blah, blah, blah. At least me, I have like a natural inclination to be like, we'll see. Like I don't really buy it yet because there's so many games that are always coming out, and it's just like, and you never know what's gonna align with your tastes. But oh my gosh, I got absolutely sucked into this game. The atmosphere, the characters, the story, the combat.
Ooh.
It just totally sucked me in.
Yeah.
Totally sucked me in.
I agree. I think I'm like you. You know, I try not to, if everyone loves something, I try not to be the first person to be like, okay, yeah, me too. You know, I try to like, okay, I want to assess and reassess. And I love indie games, and maybe I have a little bit of a chip in my shoulder. Like, oh, I play indie games. You know, 5 people made this game. I love it. But dude, this game is so good. Like, you have to give credit to Sandfall. You have to give credit to everyone who's played it, I guess, who has put this game everywhere on the news, on the gaming sphere, and every outlet. This game is amazing, and you should play it. We should celebrate this game. It's so freaking good, and it kind of gives a standard of you can make a game just as good as this one if you really want to. You can talk about the team size and the contractors and third-party people that you use, but welcome to the real world, dude. Every company uses third-party workers. It doesn't matter. This game is incredible, and I cannot wait to talk about it with you, Ben, because there is so much to talk about. This game, the story of this game is like no other, because it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the beginning, Act 1, Act 2, or later, you have no idea what's going on in the game. The story is so well done, and it keeps you on your toes.
There's so many moments where you think you know what's going on, and then the game totally flips it on you, and you're sent spiraling. There were so many times in the Video Game Book Club Discord this month, you know, a lot of people were playing this game with us, and like it was almost like clockwork. Like once a week, someone would send a message that was just like, what just happened? I just got to this point in the story. I'm so confused. Like the game, it's just constantly yanking the carrot because you get so close. You're like, oh, now I think I know what's going on, and then bang, totally flips it on you, and you're totally lost again. But man, for all of that confusion and all of that trying to figure things out, it wraps it up really well. And by the end of the story, it looking back, it's such a cohesive narrative, and it's told in a really unique way.
What I like about it too is that the game ends, you know the whole story now, and it just incites debate You just want to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. It's not like a movie that is complicated. You reach the end and then you get it and you're like, oh my God, what a twist. They had us in the first half. It's like, no, you get there and you can't stop talking about it because there's no right answer, and we'll get there. But it's just really difficult to kind of put into words the emotion that the game makes you feel, the relationships that you kind of like build with these characters. It's insane. They did such a good job. Kudos to the writers. The good thing about it too is that even though you don't know what's going on half the time, like you said, the combat is fun. Navigating the world is really fun. There's a lot of side quests and dungeons to do. So you can just sink your teeth or like sink all of your time into this game, and you just there's so much content there. There's as much content as you want, and the story will wait for you, and it'll hit you so hard when you get there. But I think without further ado, we should get to it. Like in every episode of Video Game Book Club, Ben and I recap and react to the whole game. So this is your warning. If you haven't played Expedition 33 and you want to before listening to us, go play it. If you've played it already, join us, baby. We are heading head first. Ben, why don't you tell us how this game starts off?
Yeah, the game starts very, like, I don't want to say slow, but it starts very plainly. It's you go into the game, you're controlling this character, Gustav. You're going through some like kind of basic tutorial, like movement tutorials. There's a combat tutorial that's very basic. And you really have no idea what's going on in this world. You meet a character right off the bat named Male, and Male is kind of Gustav's sister, but not really. Yeah. They have a very like familial relationship, but they're not technically related. And so, Gustav and Male are kind of going back and forth, talking a little bit about the world. There's mention of Sophie, who seems to be an ex-girlfriend of Gustav, so adding some romantic intrigue right off the bat. And also a lot of talk about kind of running out of time, and it's unclear what that's referring to, but you're going through the tutorial, you're learning the combat, and I think overall you get a lot of opportunities to talk to a lot of different NPCs. They all kind of give you little tidbits about the world. You eventually meet Sophie, Gustav's ex-girlfriend. That adds kind of like a baseline emotional element to the game. And it's very clear right off the bat something is about to happen. And it's clear that, a lot of people are about to die. We don't know why. We don't know how. There's a giant monument in the distance with the number 34 painted on it. Everything is very confusing. Everything is very obscure, for lack of a better word. But I think the developers do a pretty good job kind of setting up the kind of vibe of the game in this first kind of tutorial area.
I completely agree. I what ends up happening next is that this is actually a ceremony of some sorts that you are witnessing as Gustav. And there's these people that are wearing like rose petal like ornaments or like necklaces basically. And the people that are wearing those are people that are about to die. And it's a shock. You are celebrating kind of a bittersweet moment, the last kind of breath that these people are going to take, because in the distance, all of a sudden, the paintress, which is, not the paintress, a random huge being will get up and they will paint the number 33 on this monument that Ben is talking about. That looks like a big rock. It's like a giant, like rectangular rock. And instead of it saying 34, it says 33. And when that happens, everyone that is wearing the rose necklace dies. They kind of like disappear.
Everyone below that age, everyone above the age of 33 is going to die. So the city is like getting progressively younger as well as this is happening, which is an interesting tidbit.
And so as you're walking and talking to the NPCs, the cool thing about it is that the game immediately introduces like a lot of ideologies to you. You talk to people and some of them are completely devastated about what's about to happen, that everyone that is 34 or older, well, no, you can't be older. So everyone that is 34 right now will die. Everyone that is 33 will die.
Yeah.
Sorry.
33 and up.
Everyone that is 33 is going to die. But they have two ideologies. One is, should we live our lives to the fullest, knowing that our lives are being cut short because of this being? Are we going to like get married and have children and have us start a family, even though in 10 years, you know, like they're about to die, basically, you know, they won't be there. They won't be there to raise their kid, which is what happened to Maëlle. You know, she was an orphan, and that's why she's kind of like the adoptive sister of Gustave. And on the other side, though, they have these people that they're like, we don't want anything to do with this. We want to fight it. There's no way that this is our lives. We have to go bang on and try to figure out how we're going to solve this crazy, not even conundrum, this horrible like reality that we're living in our world. So you have people that want to live their life to the fullest and people that don't want that at all. They use their lives to try to figure out how we're going to overcome this. And Gustave is one of them. And so this is how you get to meet the expeditioners. The expedition that is about to happen happens every single year, and a group of people that unfortunately every single year gets smaller and smaller because they, you know, their morale is super low. It's been a lot of years since the Gomaging started. They are going to get together and they're going to travel towards this being to see what they can do to overcome this horrible situation.
Yeah. So, you know, it kind of sets up that those two types of people, like you said, and then, you know, it's time. The giant paintress in the distance stands up, paints on her monument the number 33, and all of these people start slowly fading away, including Sophie, Gustave's ex-girlfriend. So it just, you know, it's the beginning of the game, so you don't have huge emotional attachments to any of these characters, but
it was still sad.
Like they do a good enough job with the dialogue to where it does feel sad. And right after that happens, I mean, there's basically no time to waste. No. It's basically that same night is the Expedition Festival, because the next day, the expeditioners from that group, whoever wants to volunteer to go, including our Gustave and Maëlle that we've previously met, they're going to set off. So the Expedition Festival, everyone gathers together. There, you know, there's a lot of trauma bonding happening. Yeah. People are getting drunk. People are playing games. People are kind of depressed. There's a lot of different emotional responses happening. But overall, you know, people are just kind of commiserating, basically, before leaving on this. We get a little bit more of a combat tutorial. Maëlle kind of challenges you one last time to a fight before you leave. And I feel like a lot of the fights have been pretty easy up until now, but this one is more like a proper boss fight in a lot of ways, and you have to kind of be on it if you want to win. And so this is the first time I started really, you know, combat operates in a turn-based way, right? But when it's your enemy's turn, you have the opportunity to react to their attacks. And you can do that either by dodging or parrying. So if you dodge, there's, you know, a larger window to dodge the attack, but there's no effective dodging. You just dodge it and that's it. Or if you want to hit a much smaller window, you can parry the attack. And if you successfully parry the attack, then you get to perform a big counterattack, and that kind of lets you do some damage on the enemy's turn as well.
And if you're a cool person, you will only parry and you will never dodge. The problem is...
Dodge button, I might as well have unbound it. Dodge doesn't exist.
Take it away. We don't need dodge. We're parry boys. We're parry boys here. The problem is you have to parry every single attack in that kind of like combo that the enemy is doing. So if you just parry one, you don't get a big counter attack. You have to parry. If it's 7 attacks, you have to parry all 7, and it gets increasingly hard. Yeah. Like Ben said, this fight is super tough, especially like being so fresh and so green in this game. We were both playing on hard at this point because I had to switch to normal at some point. And it's really, really tough. It took me like 6, 7, 8 tries. I don't even know. But I have a theory, Ben, that I want to talk about super quick about why parrying is difficult in this game,
right. Let
but
me hear
also
this
why
theory.
it's so enticing. So I think the camera plays a huge role into why this pairing feels different, and it feels like innovative than other games, like, I don't know, like your Sekiro or like your Souls games, or maybe like even like 2D Souls games. Like we've played Nine Souls, which is like a 2D platforming game where you can
Yeah.
parry. The cool thing about it is that you have two perspectives, right? You have your 2D, so someone is right in front of you and it's really easy to gauge when you're going to get hit. Or you have like the over the shoulder ish, like third person view, like in Sekiro or in Dark Souls, or like the first person view, makes it really easy again to know when you're going to get hit. But in this game, there's two things that happen. One, the enemies have like a cinematic action towards you. So it's kind of hard to gauge when that will hit you because your camera is so far away from yourself, from the person you're supposed to be like guarding. Or you have this like diagonal view to your party members, and when the enemy attacks, it's kind of hard to gauge when that's gonna hit. So what you need to do is that you need to listen to the attack. It's like every karate movie in the world. Don't look at the enemy, close your eyes and listen, and then you start getting in tune with the game, and you will find these like kind of like exact tunes, I guess, that the game plays. You'll recognize them and you'll be able to parry well. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say.
I think I totally agree with that. I think one of the main reasons I struggled with it is because in a lot of other games with parry systems in general, it seems like the timing for a parry is normally just before an attack lands. But in this game, I think the parry timing is right as the attack lands, even to slightly after the attack lands in some instances. So I was, like you said, when I first started, I wasn't listening for the audio cues and I was trying to parry like I've been, just before the attack lands, like I've been taught to do in other games. But once I kind of typed about this in the Discord, said I was having trouble with it, and somebody said you almost have to treat it like a rhythm game, and I 100% agree with that. After playing it, it does in a lot of ways become a rhythm game because you're relying on those audio cues. You're relying on the the metronome of combat basically to know when to parry, when to dodge, if you have to.
And we've played a Hi-Fi Rush, and Ben was so much better than me at Hi-Fi Rush, so maybe he was also a lot better than me at parrying.
Well, that's why I beat the game on hard mode and you didn't. I mean,
okay, we'll get there, guy. All right, at this point, I'm still in hard mode, and let's get back into the story. Okay, so we are celebrating, not really celebrating, but we're basically like, okay, this is our last night in Lumiere, which is the city where these people reside, and we're going to make a trip kind of towards our expedition, towards this being, right? And you have your last night. You actually meet your sister. You have a conversation with your sister, and she's kind of like, again, gives you another ideology. She's kind of like upset that Gustav is doing this, and she's kind of like, you should rethink this. You're throwing your last year of life away. Is this what you really want? And he's like, yes, this is what I want. Let's go. So you head there and you land on the other side of, like, I don't know, a small strip of ocean. And what happens, Ben?
Yeah, so the vibes on the ship are reasonably high.
I think
Everyone's
so.
kind of palling around, everyone's trying to lean on each other for motivation. They land on the beach and total tonal shift. This becomes a scene straight out of Saving Private Ryan, if anyone is familiar with that movie.
Oh, yeah.
It is storming the beaches of Normandy. They land on the beach. A mysterious character with whitish hair sort of comes out of nowhere. He knocks his cane on the ground and the laser beams start flying everywhere. Expeditioners are dropping like flies.
It's a massacre.
Kind of zooms in. It's a total massacre. There's a lot of shell shot going on. It kind of Gustav, our main character, is totally beside himself. He's cut off from Mael. He kind of loses her in the Bedlam. He's running from person to person. He runs up to one person, they get decapitated. He runs up to one person, they get vaporized. Like it's just total mayhem, massacre. Gustav somehow manages to escape. I think he's one of, he doesn't know of any survivors when he escapes, but he wakes up alone. Basically, he's by himself. He's in this totally foreign land now. He's kind of stumbling through. You have your first encounters with the main type of enemy in this game called Nevrons, which is just the name for kind of they come in a lot of shapes and sizes, but for the most part, they're just kind of fantastical looking creatures, stuff like that.
Yeah, we've never seen creatures like this in every other game.
Yeah,
They're super
so
unique.
Gustav,
Super good.
he's kind of stumbling around looking for other survivors, hoping there's other survivors. He comes across a cave, and in this cave is basically just a pile of dead expeditioners in various stages of decay, pretty much. Gustav is very upset. He thinks, he's kind of the only one left, and he briefly considers even ending his own life, thinking that he's so, doomed, basically, which in this case, it kind of looks like he is.
Yeah.
Until somebody intervenes.
Gustav is sitting down. He's thinking of ending it all, and then someone sits down next to him to comfort him. Basically, Gustav is so shell-shocked by everything he just witnessed, by losing all of his friends and Mael, that he's like, it's over. But this new member of the expedition, Lune, I played in English, they say Lune, I don't know what they say in French, Benny. Lune, probably.
Yeah.
She is the opposite of Gustav. She is cool, she's calm, and she's collected. And she is basically telling him, like, what are you doing? We have a job to do. We are expeditioners. When one of us falls, not if, when, because we know we're going to die, we continue. So basically, she kind of like gets him kind of get back to himself. She helps him like, hey, man, this is not over. Like, we have to keep going. And now you're a party of two. It's Gustav and Lune, and they're going ahead, and they're stuck in this like forest. And basically they need to get out, and there's a bunch of Nevrons around. Every time a new party member joins like your team, you have to do their combat tutorial, because every character that joins your team is super, super interesting to play. Bar Gustav, actually, he probably has the most boring kind of like, combat set. But Lune is your mage. She is super dope. She basically can cast like 4 different elemental attacks, and each element that she casts will give her a stain, they call it. And if you use these stains, to boost other attacks, and that's kind of how she works. It's really, really cool. She immediately became my favorite. I absolutely love her.
I think Lune's mechanic kind of teaches the player that there's an element of like forethought required for being successful in the combat. Like you can do your attacks, you can parry, but if you really want to pull off like the big combos, there's some planning that's required. So, for Lune, that comes in the form of, like you said, building up these different elemental stains of specific elements, and then using them in like a big ability that consumes all the stains to do a bunch more damage.
So tell me, what was your favorite stain?
My favorite stain, I guess I feel like Lune. So playing on the like expert difficulty, any ability that like any attack I took from the enemy basically killed one of my party members. So Lune basically became like a revive bot for me. She has an ability that just revives a party member. So she was just my revive bot. And so I think I probably just generated more green stains than anything else. But yeah.
I mean, definitely in the first act, I feel like she was a revive bot too. I mean, I was dying left and right. Just one hit kills you. It's so tough because I don't want to dodge, even though dodging is so much easier. I only want to parry. But I would say Earth as well. I really liked her Earth skills, because they fill up the break meter that every enemy has. And if you break them, quote unquote, then they get stunned for their next turn, which is great. And then you can deal a lot of damage. But basically and Loon kind of get out of this area, you actually find another expeditioner, Leo, who is alive, and he quickly dies, and you have this big boss fight. It's like your first kind of real boss fight. It's tough. I had to do it a few times, but it's just a game telling you, like, we don't play. Like Ben says, you have to play well, you have to parry, dodge, and you have to know how to use your characters to maximize their damage. And it's really great. But before you exit this kind of first area, you find something. Ben, there's something written, a message waiting for Gustav and Lune. And Lune. I'm going to say Lune because that's how I know her. But basically, Gustav thinks that Mael is alive. There's a message waiting for them, and he thinks it's from Mael, and he is desperately trying to find her. Luna is a little bit apprehensive at this. She's like, no, dude, we have a job to do, and our job is to, one, start finding the journals of the other expedition so that we can understand what's going on in this world, and two, we need to go defeat this lady, the big being that is painting on the monolith. So we can't do that, but they have a little bit back and forth, and then they kind of come to the agreement that they kind of are going the same direction, so let's just keep going. They leave that area, and you finally get to the overworld. The first time you get to the overworld. And I have to say something. The overworld, to me, at the beginning, didn't feel exactly right. The movement just felt so slow compared to your size, if that makes sense. Like, I would assume that if you were slightly smaller, the speed makes more sense. And if you were, like, but because you're like slightly bigger, if that makes sense, in the map, you just move so slow. So I didn't really like it. I kind of didn't like it. I kind of wanted to zoom a little more. Just give me a little bit more speed so it feels a little more natural. But
which comes eventually, but we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
So you go in the overworld, for the first time. There's sort of some new enemy encounters here. You can explore, find a few items in the overworld. There's some enemies to fight, but eventually you go to your next location, like you alluded to, which is sort of an underwater area. It's like the classic video game underwater biome.
It's so cool, though.
You go in, there's a lot of like nautical themed enemies. They introduce kind of a new class of enemy here as well, which is like a flying enemy. Yeah. And flying enemies can't really be targeted effectively by normal skills like you might be for everything else. So you have to kind of treat those a little differently and either hit them with your free aim attacks or pull off the counter attacks. But you go through this area, there's stuff to explore here. There's things to find and lots of interesting enemies. But eventually you come upon a little hut. There's like a sort of indescript hut in the middle of this underwater biome. And inside the hut is this really ornate looking door. And if you go inside the door, you're teleported to this crazy looking manor. Mm-hmm. So you're all of a sudden, Gustav and Lune are inside this crazy, ornate, extravagant manor. Everything is gold plated. There's art on the walls. It's like, what is going on? We don't know where we are. You kind of explore a bit. And eventually, after trying to open lots of locked doors, because all the doors are locked, you eventually find one that's not locked, and inside is Mael.
It's Mael! The reunion is so good. Gustav and Mael finally reunite. They've been separated. Gustav thought she was dead, and they're together. And it's like, okay, up until this point, this game has been nothing but tragedy. But at least we have some sort of reprieve, finding Mael, getting like your team a little bit bigger and getting some help. So Gustav is like, what are you doing here? How did you get here? And then you meet the curator, which is this crazy looking being. He kind of looks like a person, but his face doesn't exist. It's hollow. He's like gray. He's decaying and he floats and he doesn't speak any English words or French words. He just kind of speaks in like a spectral tone. But Mael can understand him for some reason. And he starts helping the team by teaching them how to upgrade their abilities, how to use the Lumina, which is a a whole mechanic in the combat where you basically can add these different like passive skills to your characters. I felt like the menuing for those like passive abilities were a little bit annoying to deal with. I feel like they could have done a little bit of a better job, so it was kind of annoying to select them all the time. But regardless, you have basically things that you can equip so that your characters become better. And now you can keep going with Mael in your team.
Yeah, this point is where the game kind of pulls back the curtain on all of the RPG mechanics that are inside it. You've got pictos, which are little kind of runes or charms in other games, things that you equip that kind of like change your abilities or modify your abilities in pretty subtle ways. And if you use those pictos a certain number of times, if you win, I think, 4 battles with a picto equipped, then you sort of master that picto and you're able to passively equip it without filling up a picto slot, because you only have 3, using this sort of secondary currency called Lumina. So this is where the game kind of really introduces you to that. Now that you have 3 party members, you've probably picked up a lot of different pictos at this point. And you kind of have to sit there for a bit and say, okay, I'm going to put this picto on that person, and then when that's mastered, I'm going to put it on this person, but then I'm going to put this one on that person, and blah, 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 blah. It just like snowballs, and there's so many pictos. Like you said, I definitely didn't love the menuing aspect of it, but my one grievance with it is that you end up with so many pictos, which is fine. You end up with so many pictos, and you can sort them, which is great. You can sort them alphabetically, you can sort them by level, by power, by whatever. But when you sort them, they don't stay sorted. When you leave the menu, they default to whatever default order they're in. So if you that one minor change could have saved me so much time in the menus.
So you can favorite, and that's what I did. So I started favoriting the best ones, and then I would sort them by favorite. And so then I knew, okay, these are the best ones that I have. I need to equip them. For me, it's like, so you have AP in the game. So in combat, every time you use a skill, it uses AP, and every time it's your turn, you gain an AP back. There's different pictos that will give you extra AP if you do certain things like parrying, or just like when combat starts, you start with +1 AP, and it's called Energizing Start. But there's different levels of Energizing Start. There's Energizing Start 1, there's Energizing Start 2, and 3, and 4. And instead of that being an incremental one-liner, it's 4 different pictos. It's just like... I don't know.
I get why they did that to an extent, because they want you to be able to like stack them.
Well, yeah, but just let me press it a couple times, and it's like it can have like a little multiplier. Like, okay, you press it once, it costs 5 Lumina. If you press it again, it's cost 10, and then you keeps going. It'll kind of like minimize a little bit the menu by like half. Honestly, would cut it in half.
Sure.
Regardless, it's a cool system. And you don't have to big brain it. Honestly, the most important thing is that pictos give you stat boost. The 3 pictos that you equip, the stat boost that you equip with them are the most important things. And everything in the background is the Lumina. And eventually you'll have so much Lumina that you won't know what to do with. So like you don't have to big brain it at all. Yeah. But you do all of that. And then you leave the manor finally, and you meet Noko, a Gestrel. And a Gestrel is a kind of like magical creature that you've heard about but have never met. And I don't know how else to describe them, but like a wooden minion. If minions wanted to absolutely beat the crap out of each other because they love fighting. And they sound like minions a little bit. They're like nonsensical the way that they speak. It's hilarious. And this particular one is really tiny. They all wear a mask, and basically he tells you that you need to come to the Gestrel village, because in that village, they might help you kind of get to the Paintress. And so you go through this area, another big boss fight. There's a boss fight in every area. Then you get out into like the open world again. At this point, after Flying Waters, which is where you were, the area does open up a little bit, and there's a couple of things that you can do, but most of it you're probably under leveled at this point. So you walk around a little bit, you get your butt kicked, and so you're like, okay, I'll try it later, and then you just go to the next area, and eventually again you just fight a bunch, you make it to the Gestural Village, and the Gestural Village is pretty big. I didn't realize how big it would be. I walked in and I was like, maybe it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, okay, I'll walk around a little bit and then I'll go to bed. And then I walked around for like 2 hours, you know. It's like there's so much going on in this village, and you meet all sorts of characters. But basically, you go and find the chief of the village. Her name is Golgra. She's a muscle mommy. You know, she's huge. She will beat the crap out of you if you taunt her. Do not taunt her until you're level like 70 or something. And basically, she's like, okay, I'll help you, but you have to prove yourself. And to prove yourself, we love fighting. We love strength. You have to go into the arena and defeat the champion. And you're like, all right, sounds good. So you can pick one character, and it's a one-on-one duel. And for me, I just picked Gustav because he was just my strongest guy in the moment. It just seemed for me that like every weapon that I found was for him and not for Lune or Mael.
Yeah.
So you go through a series of fights, and who is the champion of the arena, Ben? But an expeditioner. And so you meet your fourth character.
Well, first of all, there is a correct choice for who to go through the arena.
There is, and I didn't do it.
That is Mael. If you go, depending on who you choose to go through the arena, you get a weapon for that person, and the weapon drop for Mael winds up being like one of the strongest weapons in the game for her. So, yeah, sorry for you. You picked the
But
wrong
like,
choice
how
there.
did you know? How did you know?
I think what happened was I did a different character for each one. So I just like happened to land on Mael for the last one, and I got it. And I was like,
you are so lucky, dude. I mean, every single person that I talk to about this game is like, hey, did you go to the arena yet? Did you choose Mael? I'm like, no, I didn't, bro. I didn't know. I just chose Gustav because I wanted to win.
But the final champion of the arena is Ciel. Ciel is another expeditioner who got separated from the party during, the fiasco, the mayhem, the murder at the beach. And she woke up just like Gustav, woke up by herself and found her way to this Gestural Village. And now, she fought through, she's the champion of the arena. Upon realizing it's her, you freak out. You're like, oh my gosh, it's Ciel. How did this happen? But the crowd is like, we want to fight. We want to fight. And so you got to fight Ciel. She's kind of a boss fight in and of herself. Eventually you get through her and she joins the party. And Ciel has probably one of the more complex mechanics that's been introduced so far. We talked about Lune's stains. I don't think we mentioned it, but Mael has different stances that she can be in. Yeah. So different abilities put her in different stances. She can be defensive, she can be offensive, or she can be in her virtuoso stance. And in that's the stance you're trying to get to, because in that you do like plus 200% damage basically. So you're trying to set it up to get to that. But Ciel has more than one mechanic basically. She has each ability of hers gives you a stack of gives you either a sun stack or a moon stack, and those do different things. But her abilities also inflict stacks of
fortune.
I think
fortune
on the enemy. So the enemy, while you're building up your stacks, you're also building up stacks on the enemy. And if you get a sun charge and a moon charge at the same time, you enter the twilight stance. And that, similar to the virtuoso stance with Mael, gives you a huge damage boost, gives you lots of different buffs. So you kind of want to build up those stacks, build up stacks on the enemy, enter twilight stance, and then boom, drop the hammer.
It's really like every single character in this team could be like the main character in a game, because they're so interesting and their mechanics are so well done. But Mael is just the Watcher from Slay the Spire. So even though everyone is in love with Mael and everyone's in love with the stances and stuff, I benched her immediately. I was like, get out of my team, dude. Ciel, you're locked in, because because I've done that. I've done the stances. Slay the Spire is one of my favorite games, and I'm like, you're literally the watcher, so I'm gonna bench you. CL was so unique. I love building up the fortune. I love consuming the fortune. When you do, you deal so much damage, and I started like hitting that 9,999 damage cap that you have at the beginning of the game consistently. And just seeing those 4 9s made me so happy. I was like, CL, you're absolutely locked in.
I was the total opposite. I did CL's tutorial. I was like, I'm not reading all that. Mael, you're staying in the party.
Wait, I'm the one who's supposed to not like to read, dude. We can't both do it. Well, you beat Ciel, and so now you're the champion of the arena, and Golgra's super excited, and she's like, okay, I'll give you the password to go into this cave, and this person or this being in the cave is the one who's going to help you, kind of keep going in your journey. And you go to the cave, and there's a gestural guard in the cave, and the password that Golgra gives Gustav is "Get out of my way," which is hilarious because Gustav is such a lovable character. He is so genuine. He's so nice, and he wouldn't hurt a fly, really, even though obviously you're playing a fighting game. But he's amazing. Like, you love him so much, and just he even has like a personal conflict just yelling "Get out of my way" to the gesture because he doesn't want to be rude, and it's so hilarious. You walk through the cave and you find Eskie, and Eskie is been probably the best being that has ever existed in all of video games.
I don't even know how to describe Eskie. He's like this doll brought to life and gigantic, basically.
He's huge.
Also like, he's like kind of happy-go-lucky. His emotions are like very simple. He seems to recognize some people in the party, but it's like very vague as to why. And he agrees to help you, but he tells you he needs his magic rocks because of course he does. And he's like, yeah, actually one of my rocks is with my neighbor right next door, Francois. And Francois is a rock, basically, and he is the grouchiest rock of all time. You go to Francois and you're like, hey, Eskie needs his rock, and Francois is like, he's not stealing my rock again, you can pry it from my cold dead hands. And so you have to defeat Francois,
and Francois has the best lightning attack in the world. I think that's almost the exact quote that is said when he attacks, which is hilarious.
Yeah, so you got to beat Francois. You get Eskie's stone, you bring it to him, and he's like, okay, cool, now I'll help you. And so the result of that is that once you go back into the overworld, you can now use Eskie to traverse the overworld. So, like you mentioned at the beginning, in the overworld, you're very slow. It's like hard to get around. But as the map opens up, you need to be able to get around a little quicker. And that's kind of where Eskie comes in.
This is exactly where the movement just feels incredible. I knew as soon as I got to the overworld, I was like, this feels terrible. And then you mount Eskie, and then it's amazing. But basically there's these like rocks everywhere that you can't traverse through unless you have you're like mounted on Eskie, and Eskie just like runs through them easy peasy because he is the strongest being in this planet. Literally, that is a fact in the lore of this game. Eskie is the strongest being, but he's lazy.
Like, but he doesn't care. He's like
care.
Tom Bombadil from The Lord of the Rings. He's like the most powerful character in the universe, but he just doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care. So
he has the best quotes. He's just hilarious. He's incredible. He, eventually you can swim with him, and he's like, time for a swim. He's just so funny. The most lovable guy. But hey, man, you know what's not lovable? The tragedy that you're literally living through right now. People are going to die unless you get to the paintress and you figure out what the hell is going on. So you have to keep going. And with Eskie's help, you reach the Stone Wave Cliffs. And so, again, a new kind of like area. Every area is so different than the last, but they have these like same kind of themes going on. Like, things are floating just like oddly, similar characteristic, but very unique. And it's amazing how they can keep that same theme going. Area, per area, you can tell that the team of developers, the artists, really were super in tune of what they wanted to do, because you don't feel like, oh yeah, this area was made by like this handful of people and this area was made by this handful of people, and they look totally different and they don't really like coexist really well. In this game, they coexist really, really well. You go through it, and at the end, like always, there's a boss fight, and you find the Lamp Master. And this is like your true first test in kind of this video game. It's really difficult to get through it, and you definitely will die a bunch.
Yeah, I think this is when the game really lets you know what it's going to be all about, because this is kind of the first, like, we've had some boss fights so far, but this is the first like hugely cinematic boss fight. True. And it also has a lot of really unique boss mechanics to it. So like, for example, the character is the Lamp Master. When you're fighting him, there's all these lamps floating around him, and as he fights, he will light up the lamps around him in a certain order. And if you then use your free attacks to shoot the same lamps in the same order that he lit them up, you can essentially cancel this giant, charge attack that he's about to do.
What the hell,
like super... You didn't know this?
No, I didn't do that at all. What the hell, dude? I got so cooked. I just had to deal with the huge attacks over and over until I perfected the parry, and then... Even
if you do that, though, it's still a hard fight.
It was so tough. I can't believe it. I can't. Yeah. I did not do that at all.
So you're going through the Lamp Master. It's a hard fight. It's a multi-phase fight. He keeps coming back. He won't die. He eventually, you kind of defeat him. He falls off a cliff into the sea, and he drops a rock. And the rock is going to give Eskie the ability to swim. So you're like, yay, everyone's happy. Woo, woohoo, we got the swim rock. Now Eskie can take us to the Paintress because she's across the ocean. Eskie is waiting in the water down below. All of the party members start jumping off the cliff onto Eskie, except for Gustav and Mael, because they're picking out a little flower, and they're looking for the flowers, and they're saying, which one do we think will be the best? And then, boom, you hear the knocking of the cane, the same one from the beach earlier.
I don't want it, Ben.
The same gray-haired man appears out of nowhere.
Who is this old man, and why is he old if you can't live past 33, bro?
I don't know. All I know is that he instantly kills Gustav, and it is heartbreaking.
Heart-wrenching.
Totally heartbreaking. Yeah. We've been with Gustav the whole time up until now. You learned about his past. In the tutorial level, you learn about how he is really active with the youth in Lumiere. He's like teaching the next generation of expeditioners, basically. You get all this emotional attachment to Gustav, and he is just unceremoniously murdered before your and before Mael's very eyes.
Mael is, like, the shock that she had in her face, it is burned into my brain. Like, I was looking just like her, honestly. She has, like, Gustav's blood, like, spills on her face, basically, as he's dying. And it's just so sad because there's no question about it. Like, he's dead. This is no like, oh, he'll come back later, or oh, whatever. It's fake. Like, someone's gonna swoop in, save him, and it'll be good. No, bro is dead. Yeah. Someone does come in though, thankfully, and saves Mael, and this mysterious figure who also, Ben, has a little bit of white hair, comes in, basically shoos away the old man, grabs Mael, and then they run out into Eskie. Basically, Eskie had like dove into from the cliff into the ocean with Loon and Ciel, and so they kind of like dive in onto him as well, and then they escape. Before they escape, though, Mael was able to grab Gustav's like fake hand. He has the converter hand, basically. If you think of like Anakin Skywalker's fake hand or Luke Skywalker's fake hand, that's kind of what it looks like. And dude, you don't have a main character now. Okay.
Yeah.
So listen to this. The act 1 starts, and it's just a blank screen, a dark screen, and it says Act 1 Gustav. And then Act 2 starts, and Act 2 says, it's a dark screen again. It says Act 2, and then it says Verso underneath. And I was like, oh my God, does that mean Verso's going to die at the end of Act 2 also? I was like, I don't know what this game is about, dude. This is crazy. We failed to mention a couple of things, but basically Mael starts having these like nightmares basically right at the end of Act 1 and into Act 2. And they'll happen a lot, so we'll just say it once. But basically, she starts seeing the dark-haired man, the old man, and she also starts seeing this girl who looks literally exactly like her or very, very similar to her, but her face is burnt, and so she wears a mask that kind of like hides her face. And then they always say cryptic things to her, things that she definitely doesn't understand, things like, you only know that you are not, or something like that. And that makes no sense, you know. And then she wakes up. Every time she has these like nightmares, everything around her freezes except her and like the figures that she sees. So now you're going into Act 2, and you have a hub always. You can go to camp, quote unquote. And camp is always looks the same. It's basically literally just like camp. You have a campfire, you have a little vinyl record player because you can pick up music. And so now you are not Gustav anymore, but the game defaults you to this new character, and he introduces to everyone as Verso. And Verso is old. He has not died. And basically, all he tells the crew is that he also wants to fight the Paintress, and he's going to join the expedition. He's helped other expeditions in the past, and that he is immortal. He doesn't know why, but he cannot die to the Gommage. Obviously, the crew has so many questions for him, but he's very elusive. He's a nice person, though. Don't get me wrong. You quickly start liking him, and you better start liking him, because I cannot believe the game killed Gustav. Like, that is such a big, curveball that they threw at us. And if they had made another main character that isn't likable like Gustav, then it just wouldn't have worked. The cool thing about Verso is that his combat is really fun. He kind of, if you played a beat 'em up, he kind of has like that beat 'em up like letter grade meter that he fills up as he uses different skills and does like his basic attacks. And when the letter grades are higher, he does more damage and stuff like that. So it's simple-ish, but it's pretty fun. Definitely a lot more fun than Gustav's. And then you know why Gustav's was kind of simple, is because he was gonna die anyways. And
so the party is totally rattled. Verso has joined. Everyone is a little skeptical of Verso. Nobody really knows what his intentions are. He tells you he's immortal. He tells you a little bit about the gray-haired man and how he's also immortal, and he gets that immortality from the Paintress, so he's essentially trying to stop the expeditions. But he says he's going to help you, like you said, and to do that, you got to keep going north. You got to keep going towards the Paintress, and the way north is through the Forgotten Battlefield. So this is our next big mandatory area in the game. It is essentially, it looks like trenches out of like World War One, filled with dead Nevrons, expeditioners, lots of stuff going on.
Filled with
just
constant fighting, and other big like furry kind of big creatures that you haven't met yet. It's really, a huge battle. Yeah,
so this is a very cool area. Lots of encounters here. But at the end of it, to get through the Forgotten Battlefield, you have to face the Duelist. The Duelist. This is a classic boss design. Think Dark Souls 3.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's got the two swords, one flaming and one kind of purplish. And this is like another one of these super cinematic boss fights. One of my favorites in the game because, we talked about kind of the rhythm aspect to it. By the end of the fight, most enemies, their attacks consist of, maybe 2, 3, 4 attacks in a row. You got to parry all of them, and then you get the counterattack. By the end of the Duelist boss fight, you're having to parry like 15 attacks in a row and nail the timing every time. But they do such a good job with the rhythm and the sound cue aspect of it that it almost feels like a dance. You like get in the rhythm, you're doing the parrying on the beat basically, and it feels awesome. It's one of my favorite fights in the whole game. Super cinematic, and it's awesome.
I completely agree. It was so much fun. I do have to confess, right before the Forgotten Battlefield, that's when I switched from hard to normal, because I was just taking so long to play through this game, basically. I had to fight bosses, overworld bosses especially, are really difficult, and I had to fight them over and over again, because when you play on hard, you have to be a perfect parry or a perfect dodge, and if not, you're not going to win it. And I was like, I want to do this, and I'm probably going to replay the game one day on hard mode when I have more time. But if I did, I was not going to finish this game before June 30th at midnight. And I almost didn't, even though I changed it to normal. But I want to say something that the developers do really well. We're into Act 2 now, but the whole time, the developers cement a hate for the Paintress to the player. And in this battlefield, you really, really see the cost of this war and the cost of the gommage and everything that has happened since, this monolith appeared and basically started wrecking shit, for lack of a better word, in the world. Especially when you fight the duelist, you're in a bridge, then the bridge collapses, and then you fall into a river of literally blood. The characters get up from the river, and they don't have their own blood on them. They have all of their friends, all of their families, all of the people that have gone to expeditions before you, and other beings that have helped the expeditioners' blood on you. And you're just full of rage. They make they do such a good job at making all of the environments make you hate the Paintress. So much so that in the Stone Wave Cliffs, I don't know if you did this, there's a statue of the Paintress, a small statue of the Paintress. Mm-hmm. And the characters have a little conversation. It's why is there a statue of the Paintress? It almost looks like they're honoring the Paintress. And so as Gustav at this point, you can punch it. And if you punch it, it collapses. And then the characters are like, hell yeah. They even they're like, woohoo, raise the roof, kill the Paintress, And so they do a really, really good job. But they were going towards, they were going through this bridge towards a very specific area in the Forgotten Battlefield, because the idea was that you were going to go bury Gustav. And so you go there and you realize, Ben, that there's so many other graves there in the graveyard for Expedition 0. And so that's really interesting, because Verso has said that he is from the first expedition and that he's immortal, and all of these people are buried there. And he definitely gets really emotional when he gets there. In the end, you bury Gustav and you get through the Forgotten Battlefield and you go to your next destination. Verso is okay, this is getting kind of hard. We need more help, and I know just the person to call. We gotta go get my friend Monoko. And so the party's sure, bro, more people to help us sounds good, so let's go get him. So you just kind of embark towards Monoko's station, and that's where Monoko is not hiding, but he's residing there. And you get there, and Monoko's a Gestrel, and Verso's best friend is a Gestrel, and he kind of has a little bit of he kind of looks like an ape, kind of. He has white hair, just like a Gestrel. He's made of wood, and he has a mask, and he is the second best character, I think, in this whole game. I love him so much. Monoko is hilarious, and his combat style is really, really fun too. At this point, I did think there was a little bit of a lull. There's not a lot of that in this game, but between Gustav dying and getting to Monoko, depending on what you do in the overworld, it can feel like a little long. And because you have that heartbreak of Gustav not being with you anymore, but you get that complete 180 when you meet Monoko because you love him so much. It just you really want to get there quick so that you feel a little bit happy playing the game again. But yeah, I don't know if you felt the same way with him.
I mean, Monoko has definitely the most unique combat mechanic, I thought. He's got essentially a big wheel on the screen, and each of your abilities spins that wheel a certain number of positions, and depending on the position, a different type of his abilities will be buffed up for that turn. And instead, your other characters have your standard RPG skill tree where you unlock different skills and stuff like that, but not Minoko.
No.
For Minoko, he collects feet from the Nevrons that you
Ooh,
kill.
what
And
lovely
those
feats.
feet give him the ability to use their abilities. So you have to if you want to gather these abilities, you have to have Minoko in your party during the fights so that he can reap the abilities from the enemy.
I would never bench Monoko, but that's crazy, dude. It's crazy that you have to have him in your party for you to get that new ability for his skill tree. He has a ton. It's like 50 abilities, and you have to have him in your party. That, I think, was a little bit of a fumble. But if you do bench Monoko, you literally have no heart. So I don't know what you're doing. But still, I don't think that's a good mechanic.
You know what? Gustav died. I was like, Verso, you're in. You're in the lineup. Get off the bench. Verso's in. Mael, never leaving the party. Loon, you're my revive bot because I'm on expert difficulty and I can't play the game without you. Minoko, hit the bench.
You have no heart, dude. No, I was the opposite. I was like, Verso, I hate you. You do not replace Gustav in my heart. You gotta get out of here. Stay on the bench for literally ever.
Love that.
And I was in the Monoko Ciel Loon train for sure.
Okay. But you get Minoko, and it's time to proceed. And Verso says he has an idea. He thinks the heart of the Paintress is residing in Old Lumiere, which is a part of the city that was separated from Lumiere in the sort of events that, the catastrophe of this world. It was separated, and we have to go to Old Lumiere to get to the heart of the Paintress. And so that's where we're going. You get there, things happen, and the party gets totally split up. And I think this was really smart because, like I just said, I was set in my party. I was like, nobody's going nowhere. Verso, Mael, Loon. That's what it is. That's who I'm comfortable with. That's who I'm rolling with. But the game, in splitting the party up, forces you, because you have to play through both groups, basically.
Yeah.
And the game forces you to use the characters you haven't been using, basically. So in this case, it forced me to use Minoko and Ciel. And using Ciel, I was like, bro, Ciel is cracked.
She is in
the lineup. Yeah, Verso, hit the bench, my friend. Ciel, you are in. So I thought that was really smart by the developers in forcing you to do that. But you go through Old Lumiere, and eventually you reach a giant manor. The party reconvenes, you reach the manor, and as Mael approaches the manor, the doors swing open. And inside the manor is a woman that looks like the curator. Uh-huh. She has the same sort of decayed appearance. She has the caved-in face, the crazy hair flowing everywhere. And Verso's like, I knew it. I knew you'd open the door. The player, we have no idea what's going on. But Verso's like, I knew you would open the door for her. He charges, but before he can do anything, who appears but the gray-haired man?
Why is he everywhere, dude? Can he go home?
Renoir. He is home, bro. We're at his home.
That's true.
Now. We're at the manor.
You're right.
Renoir, as we now know him, emerges from the manor, and it's go time. We've tried to fight Renoir before. We've been totally ineffective. On the beach, we didn't get an opportunity. When he kills Gustav, you have like a short opportunity to try to fight him, but you're just totally ineffective. But now it's a proper boss fight. Now it's, all right, we're about to gang up on you, boy. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so the party is fighting Renoir. This is a really hard fight. The timings for a lot of these parries are, it really cleverly, like, slightly throws off the timings that you've kind of come to expect by now in the game, to where a lot of the moves are really tricky to nail the timing of. Huge boss fight, multi-phase, epic, but eventually you get through. But you just can't kill Renoir. You just can't do it.
No.
It's not going to work for now. He kind of disappears, and with him disappears the manor in the background. But in the kind of chaos, Noko, our favorite Gestural, who's been traveling with the party, has died.
It's so sad. And Noko is Monoko-san, too, which is really, really devastating. And so we talked about Mael and Verso going together. and that's why they go to the manor. But Ciel, Monoko, and Lune doing their own thing and trying to get there as well, they find a very interesting journal that states that Renoir is Verso's dad.
Right.
And Luna is beside herself, and she can't believe that Verso has withheld all of this information, but they kind of can't address it in the moment as good as she would want because of the fight that is going on. She confronts Monoko about it. Monoko's like, hey, don't look at me. I only like feet, And, so there's a big, skepticism that again comes out about Verso. Who is he? Why is he older? He says he's immortal. He says he doesn't know why, but there's something going on. The game keeps you on your toes. Like one day you love Verso, the next day you don't love him. One day you love him, the next day you don't love him. And it just makes it for a really, really good back and forth with your new main character who you still feel skeptical about. Yeah. Anyways, you leave, right? So you go back to camp and you are like, okay, what are we going to do now? That was supposedly, quote unquote, the heart of the paintress. The paintress is behind a barrier that we cannot penetrate. What are we going to do? Well, there's one more thing that you might be able to do, but it's crazy, Verso says. Even I'm immortal, and even I have tried this, and I can't do it. But the party's adamant, when one falls, we must continue. And basically, you come to find out via the curator, via Verso, that there are these two huge Nevrons. They're not even Nevrons. They're different gigantic beings.
They're axons.
They're called axons. And they are super strong. And basically, with the chroma, which is the essence that these beings are powered by, with the chroma, if you get both of their hearts, then the curator can make a weapon that will basically break the barrier where the paintress resides. So that's what you do. So the next thing that you have to do, you have 2 points in your map. You go to each of them and you fight these gigantic beings. One of them is called Visage, and that means faces. And that's what he is. He has a ton of faces, ton of masks. And a really funny thing happens where he's trying to kind of control you by throwing a mask at you. And so these characters, your whole party gets these masks and they kind of get stuck to their faces. But Monoko is already wearing a mask. And so the Visage keeps trying to throw a mask at Monoko and it keeps bouncing off of him. And yet again, in every single super tough moment in the game, that is intense, you don't know if you're gonna die, you don't really know what's happening, they make you laugh. The game keeps making you laugh with SK, with Monoko. It's pretty incredible. They wrote it super, super well.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, we could talk for an hour about the 2 Axon encounters by themselves. There's such incredible fights. This for me is where the game is really just flexing its muscles at this point, because the Visage's boss and Siren, the other boss, who is basically a siren who is lulling people to sleep with her singing, are unbelievable bosses, and the areas surrounding them are super intriguing and super active and kind of figuring things out and figuring out how you're going to go about these boss fights. And the boss fights themselves are incredible. But all that to say, you get through 2 of these really challenging, really difficult, really awesome boss fights. And now you've got these 2 Axon hearts. You bring them to the curator. The curator's great in his, little breathy language. And yeah, exactly. He forges out of the 2 Axon hearts the Barrier Breaker, which is a weapon for Mael. At this point, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to head for the paintress. You ride on Esquier in the ocean. You get to the barrier. Mael uses the barrier breaker to make her way through. You get to the monolith, and at this point, the scale of the monolith is really impressed upon you.
Oh, yeah.
It's been in the background this whole time, so you don't really have a good idea how big it is. But when you get there, you have full control of the camera, third-person view, but you literally cannot look up far enough to see the top of the monument. And the paintress, who we've seen from a distance sitting at the base of the monument this whole time, is absolutely gigantic. Like,
So big.
a single one of her feet fills up the entire screen. So the party is like, all right, we made it this far. Let's attack the paintress. You attack the paintress, and you are like doing nothing
Literally
to her.
nothing.
You're not even tickling her. You're trying. You're doing all you can, and out of nowhere appears again this same kind of curator-looking woman from the manor previously. She kind of comes out to confront you while you're attacking the giant paintress, and she sets everyone's heads on fire. Yeah. Everyone is freaking out. Everyone's clawing at their faces, and then just like that, it's gone. And this woman retreats into this portal. So obviously, all you can do at this point is follow her.
Yeah.
So you follow her in, and now we are inside the monolith.
You're inside, and you're trying to get to the summit of the monolith. Mael says, I know that the paintress is at the peak of it. We have to just keep going and get through this monolith. And at the beginning, I was super excited to get to it, because basically this is like an homage to all the different areas that you have fought through. So you go through like the flying water area and the gestural area, and then you go to like the snowy area. But to be honest with you, by like the 5th area, I was like, okay, like this is getting a little bit too long. You fight the same monsters that you encountered in each area, they're just a little bit stronger now. There's also like, the cool thing about it though is that there is like a secret boss or mini boss, I guess, in each area, and they'll give you like items and stuff. But like at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm up to my ears with Lumina. Every time I get a Lumina, Luna is like, ooh, an advantage, and I'm like, okay, like I'm done. Like, how, bro? This is the 300th Lumina
or
that we found.
If you're playing in French, she says, "C'est un avantage."
Oh, c'est un avantage. But as you're going through the monolith, though, you find these scenes that appear in the sky, like right in front of you, to show you a story. And the story starts with like a woman and some kids, then some kids painting, and then the woman kind of like instructing them to paint. And then some disaster happened, and she looks super sad, and she's sitting on a bench, and then a man comforts her. Different scenes like that appear, and they don't really mean anything to you in that moment. The only thing that they meant to me is that Verso explains multiple times how he's an artist, but he loves the piano, like he wants to be a musician, and his parents, quote unquote, he says, they had a different idea for me, or they didn't want that for me. So it's like, okay, right, maybe this is Verso's story, maybe, but you don't know. Until finally you get to right below the summit of the monolith, and who do you see? Yet again, Renoir is standing in your way, and him and Verso, they go at it, dude. They have a very interesting exchange. You start piecing a little bit of things together. Verso's like, I'm not your son, but like I'm also not your son. And Renoir is like, I know, but you are my family, and I love you like a son. And you're like, what? What do you mean you're not? You just told me that he's your papa, and now you're saying that you're not actually, but like kind of. And you're like, I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
But you what you do know is that you need to fight him, and so you fight him, and you have again another pretty epic fight. You defeat him, and then the curator comes because you can't actually kill him, and the curator appears out of nowhere. He grabs Miles' hand, and both of them together, they press their hands onto Renoir, and then he gommages. And finally, you have defeated Renoir after like 5 encounters with him. He is gone, and he cannot bother you anymore. For real, for sure.
Yeah. Another super awesome boss fight. This is like a boss rush, basically.
True.
Like there's just so many boss fights one after the other at this stage of the game. You get past Renoir, and you head for a final confrontation at the peak of the monolith, and waiting at the peak of the monolith is none other than the woman from before, the curator-looking woman. And it becomes obvious that this is the real paintress. Whatever giant being is at the foot of the monolith, who knows what or who that is, but that this is in front of you is the paintress, and the one at the monolith is controlled by her. She seems very shocked to see. She starts speaking. Yep. She seems very shocked to see Verso. She mentions having, thought he was lost in a fire. She continually asks if this is more of his tricks. You don't really know who he is. But she sees Verso. She sees Mael, who she calls Alicia, which you know to be the name of the scarred girl that keeps appearing in these nightmares. And everything is so confusing. You're trying to figure out what's happening, but the paintress grows enraged, and the fight is on. You get thrown into this boss fight against the paintress, and it is a super epic multi-phase boss fight. Again, the timings of these moves were so tough to nail. It took me so long. And of course, on expert difficulty, that means I died like 50 times to the paintress.
My name is
probably.
Ben, and I play on expert difficulty.
Yeah. But, you make it, you get through her first phase, and who shows up but the giant from the monolith under the control of the paintress. The fight shifts to where you're no longer on top of the monolith. The paintress is floating kind of before this giant being, and you as the party are riding on the back of Eske.
So
Eske
good.
Swoops in, and you're now fighting from his back midair. It's this crazy epic fight. The music, that's something we haven't talked about, but the music in these boss fights is unbelievably
The singing
good.
Is incredible.
The singing, yes. It's so, that is one of the strongest, parts of the game, in my opinion, is the music. A really tough fight. You get through the second phase. You're like, please let this be it. But it's not it. A third phase starts. You're like, oh my God, when will this fight be over? Please let me beat her. But the paintress stops fighting. The paintress, the fight is the same. You're still fighting her, but she, on her turns, instead of attacking you, she starts healing you.
Yeah.
You're like, what's going on here? But the only option available to you, and the only thing you know to do because of the story, is to kill the paintress. So, of course, the gang finishes off the paintress. She sort of collapses. She's exhausted. And Mael takes the opportunity to gommage the paintress. After all of this, the paintress is dead.
But before she dies, she looks at Mael and she says, Alicia. But the way she says it, with the sound design, it kind of like pierces your ear a little bit. And for a split second, just for a split second, Mael's eyes turn black. And then they go back to normal. And I thought my game was bugged. I was like, what? That was kind of weird. I don't think that was supposed to happen. But it was supposed to happen. But the paintress is dead. And what happens? The monument and the monolith all vanish. And you ride Eske back to Lumiere. And you are about to celebrate because it's over. There's no more number in the sky or no more number in the monolith. There's no more paintress. The gommage will be done and everything will be okay. But you have this bad feeling. This game isn't simple and the story has never been simple. Every time something that you think is okay and good happens, it kind of brings it back or it kind of 180s you and it says, no, you're not done at all. Everyone's celebrating. You have some bittersweet moments. There's these like small children that like look up to Gustav and they're like his little apprentices, and Mael gives them Gustav's journal. They like throw it away because they're so sad that he's dead. You have these little encounters, everyone. But Verso is sitting on the dock and he's looking super emo like he always does. And he is holding a letter. And the letter is from Alicia. And the letter is for Verso and for Mael. So she starts the letter by saying, "Dear brother," and then starts saying some crazy things that you have no idea what she's talking about. I feel like I kind of almost zoned out when she was talking because I was like, nothing that you're saying makes sense to me, But then she addresses Mael as well. And she starts saying some really, really crazy stuff. And
Yeah.
Verso, basically, Alicia is pleading to Mael that if she defeats the Paintress, everyone will die. But you're
Right.
thinking, how? Like, how is that going to happen? Like, the Paintress is the bad guy. Verso reads it through, and then he tosses the letter into the ocean. He doesn't want Mael to read this letter. And as soon as he does that, a shockwave comes out of the monolith, and everyone starts gomaging. Every single person. Ciel, Lune. Uh, who else is in the party? Monoko doesn't do it. Esuke doesn't do it. But everyone else in the city starts gomaging. And you're like,
Yeah.
holy shit, the game is not done.
Yeah. It's crazy. And this, I mean, it basically leaves you there. That's the end of Act 2. Um, Everyone just died. It totally flips it on its head. The letter from Verso, or the letter from Alicia, lets you know that the Paintress wasn't killing everybody. The Paintress was using all of her strength to prevent everyone from being killed. And the numbers, her strength essentially was waning. And as time went on, she was only able to keep, fewer and fewer people alive. And that's why the number is kind of coming down.
It was a warning
And
for everyone. She was
right.
trying to warn them, hey, this is how much time we have left.
Yeah, so it flips everything you thought you knew on its head. But before we can deal with any of that, we're thrust into what is presented as an epilogue. So you wake up, you get a short black and white cutscene of Verso burning alive basically in a fire. And then from that nightmare wakes up Mael. And Mael is in the manor. Except it's not the same manor. And she's not the same Mael. She is Alicia. What we come to learn in these next kind of little bit of gameplay basically is that everyone we thought we knew is not real.
What?
The real people are in this real world. It is this family, the Descendre family,
The song.
full of these quote unquote painters who are these people that have the ability to create these magical canvases that people can go into and experience. And in this Descendre family, there's been tragedy. There was a fire at the manor. Alicia was in the fire. That's why her face is scarred and her vocal cords are also damaged, so she can't speak in the real world. And the only reason she's alive is because real Verso, charged in and saved her, but in doing so passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what we're putting together is that this whole family is pretty much torn apart by this. Everybody, there's an older sister who we haven't met yet. Her name is Clair. And Clair is seeking revenge on the people that did this because apparently there's some rival faction that set the fire in the manor. So Clair is on a warpath against them. The mother is racked by grief, and so in her grief, she is basically in a canvas that Verso had created. And because there's like a sliver of Verso's soul still in the canvas. So the mother basically is refusing to leave the canvas to hang on to the remnants of Verso's life, basically. But in doing so, in being in the canvas for so long, her physical form in the real world is starting to weaken and wane, and that's why it is in the canvas as well. She's basically slowly dying in the canvas. Renoir, the father of the family, is trying to get the mother out of the painting. So Renoir is doing everything in his power to get the mother out of the painting. Except there's two Renoirs.
What?
There's real Renoir, who is the curator, and there's the painted Renoir, who is basically every member of the family has a facsimile of themselves, a copy of themselves that's been painted by the mother, the paintress. So we have Mael, who is herself, basically. Alicia is the facsimile of Mael. We have Verso, who's himself. We have Renoir, who is, a copy of Renoir. And then there's the paintress. And as we go, we're basically learning that these copies of their real life personas, they don't want to be erased. Real Renoir, the curator, is trying to erase everybody because he wants to get the paintress, the mother, out of the canvas to save her life. But none of them want to go. So the story, and so you awaken the manor as Alicia, and Alicia finds her sister, and the two basically begin conspiring on how to get their mother out of the canvas. They say they hide the canvas. They've gotten her out because of our actions, the player actions. They've gotten her out, and they hide the canvas. And now Mael, Alicia, is going to head back into the canvas to destroy it once and for all, basically. You head back in, you return to Lumiere, and Lumiere is totally empty. Everybody has been gommaged, as we know. Everyone has been erased by real life Renoir, because that's what's happening. They're just being erased from the painting. And you find Renoir, the curator. And Renoir is so happy.
So he looks
to
like
see
the
you.
curator at this point. And this is the first
Right.
time where he transforms into real Renoir.
Yes. He
We're going to call him
transforms
the
back
R
into
Renoir.
yeah, R Renoir.
Not
sure.
to be confused with P Renoir. Prenoir.
Yes, P Renoir. He transforms into himself, and he's so happy to see you. He's been worried sick about you because he's been trapped. This whole time he's been trapped in the painting by the paintress. He's so happy to see you and to know you're okay. And he's like, finally, we can do this together. We can destroy the canvas, get it from your mother once and for all, and we can move on as a family from our grief. Mael, as she prefers to be called now, she says, I actually kind of prefer Mael to Alicia. Mael doesn't like this idea.
No.
Mael's like, no, I'm not ready to erase everybody. Because as we've figured out, Mael doesn't have that great of a life in the real world. She's scarred from the fire. She can't speak. She's lost her brother through what she seems to think are her own actions. She thinks it's her fault, basically, that he died. She's racked with guilt, and she's like, I'm not ready to erase this all. Renoir's like, are you kidding me? Like,
Are you serious?
Be so serious right now. Are you kidding me? And you're like, no. So Renoir, he's about to throw down, but who flies in but Esquier? Esquier and Monoko have not been gommaged because they're pieces of the painting, basically. They fly in and rescue everybody. And I don't know about you. At this point in the game, I had no clue what was going on. I was trying to piece together all of this information. I was like, what is happening? I don't get it. I don't understand the story. I'm trying to figure it out. As it went, it definitely made more and more sense. But in this moment, I was so confused.
It made no sense, but all I knew was that my head had exploded and I was like, what the hell is going on? I was playing this exact prologue, they call it. It goes into a prologue and you're like, wait, shouldn't it be the epilogue? But it says specifically prologue. I was in the plane. I was playing on my Steam Deck on the plane, and my head was absolutely exploding. I was like, what am I experiencing right now? No one in this plane knows what's going on right now. But I think we will, if this is a lot of information, you haven't played the game, it would make no sense. But I think it makes a little bit more sense once we go to what happens next. So basically, Mael, as now like this known, like she knows now that she is the paintress. I mean, because she went back into the painting. She's like, okay, I know what we can do. I can use the essence that I still have to bring back Ciel and Lune and bring back the gang. Now, I cannot use any more essence than that, any more chroma, because I'm not powerful enough right now. You get Lune, you get Ciel back. They're like, what the hell is going on? I thought I had died. You have this whole moment with them where like they are, told that they are living in a canvas. But to be honest with you, Ben, they don't seem that upset about it. They seem more upset that Verso had withheld all of this information from them, and that he knew that there were these beings that are painters that could bring back their families, and the potential of all of their families to be brought back to life far outweighs their desire to do anything else. Honestly, I mean, what else would you want to do? You only want your family back. You want your world to be normal, and the world as they see it is the canvas, nothing else. But we'll get there. Basically, you get back your gang. There's no one else in the world except the Jestrels and Eskie, and what they end up doing is that they go everywhere. There's like a little cutscene. They go every single area that they've been, and they grab the chroma from every person that has died, because they still has a little bit of essence that she can kind of manufacture for herself. She can bring them kind of back to life in this kind of like statuesque form, and she can confront finally her father, Renoir. You go back to Lumiere. At this point, the game has opened up, and basically you can do this whenever you want to. You also, SK has the power of flight at this point, and there's so many like different side quests and dungeons that you can do. You can either do them right now, or you can like, you know, play the game, do the ending, and then come back and finish and do all the different side quests that you can do. At this point for me, I had like 2 days left to finish the game, so I was like, I gotta go and do this. But basically, Mael, Alicia, has like this army behind her. Obviously, she has the whole Expedition 33 members with her, and you go and confront Renoir once and for all. And this actually feels like the true kind of like final combat in the game. Whereas, sure, the paintress and everything was amazing, but when you finished it, you felt sad because, again, the paintress is healing you, like Ben mentioned. It's just like, it doesn't feel concluded. The story doesn't feel done. But right now, you know that this is the final fight. You are confronting your father. You know that it's your father as Mael and as Verso, and you have to end this once and for all.
Yeah, this is the pinnacle of the game's boss encounters. There are so many elements going on. The curator, or he kind of, you fight him in his curator form. He summons the axons from before. The two gigantic bosses are just like looming in the background.
So cool.
And they're kind of using their attacks to hurt you as well.
And they're healing the curator over and over again, and you feel like you're not doing anything. But thankfully, someone comes to your aid.
Yes. So at the end of Act 2, we defeated the paintress. We expelled her from the canvas. And in the real world, we know that Alicia and Clair hid the canvas from their mother to prevent her from going back in. I guess she found it again because the paintress flies in out of nowhere. She summons her giant paintress form from the monolith that we're familiar with, and there ensues this like giant kaiju fight of, you know, the monolith giant and the axons. They're taking them down, and the paintress essentially allows you to get in the final blows against Renoir. So this whole fight unloads. How was the fight for you? I mean, for me, it was really difficult. This was one of the harder fights in the game for me, I think.
Ever since I changed the difficulty from hard to normal, I barely died. I only died to overworld bosses if they were like, you know, I was super underleveled. I actually like, because I was playing on hard at the beginning, and it was so tough because you barely have any health and you literally are dying per blow that you receive. I think I just like got so in tune with the parrying and the dodging that when you go back to normal and you have like a slightly longer window of parry and a slightly longer window for dodging, it was so much easier, you know? And I like, for you, like, I feel like if you play this game in normal right now, again, you would die like twice. Because you are so locked in the parry system and in all the audio cues that you get from the game. So, no, I didn't die, but it was super epic, though. Like, I loved the fight so much. It was so, so good.
Yeah, but so eventually you defeat Renoir with the help of the paintress. A portal emerges, and the two of them, the paintress, the mother, and the father, Renoir, walk through the portal together. And it's kind of time to do the same. You've defeated Renoir. Verso, uh, essentially, there's kind of a final confrontation between Renoir and Maëlle, where he begs her to leave the canvas, and Maëlle basically promises him that he will. So the two leave, and Verso's like, "You lying? I just saw you lie. You're not gonna leave the canvas." So Verso runs out, tries to run through the portal, and Maëlle follows in after him. And what ensues is, similar to at the end of Nier Automata, where you have to choose either 2B or 9S. You have to choose either Verso or Maëlle here, because they're now facing off against each other. Verso wants the same thing that Renoir does. Verso is basically a shadow of himself. He has been existed in this painted world since his own death. He doesn't really want to be around anymore. He's like, this
not
is
even
all
the real Verso though. He's the
right.
painted Verso.
He's not the real
that
Verso, exactly.
Aline created. But when you go into the portal, you finally find that piece of real Verso soul that is trapped in this world and is
right.
basically forever nonstop painting this world into existence. And if this little boy, because that's how they portray him as a little boy, stops painting, then this canvas will cease to exist. And he's like, it's time to stop painting. It's time for my real soul to finally be at rest, and not for, real Verso to basically be a slave of this world forever. And Maëlle is like, no.
Yeah, Maëlle is, as we know, she's super unhappy with her own life. She, like her mother, is trying to escape into this canvas, to escape from that. In the real world, she's scarred. She can't talk. She lost her family, her brother. In here, she's Maëlle. She's powerful. She can speak. She's not scarred. She, is great. She's got all these friends. She doesn't want to leave. And the game forces you to choose whose side you want to be on. So there's going to be a fight between these two. And you got to choose, and whichever side you choose is going to affect the ending of the game. So I got to ask you, JP, whose side did you choose?
I chose Verso's side. I chose Verso's side because in the moment that, like in the shock of the story, it's what made more sense to me. Basically, if you choose Verso's side, you're saying this world is fake. Maëlle, Aline, Renoir, and even Clea are all a dysfunctional family that haven't been able to deal with grief, the loss of real Verso. And as their real selves and as their painted selves, they have been kind of trapped in this canvas because of their grief. And they need to get out. They need to get out, and they need this to be done. And so I chose Verso. I actually died to Maëlle, so this is one of those one of those deaths that I had. Expedition failed after I switched to normal, but I did it again, and then I defeated her, and I got a cutscene. Everyone starts gommaging. Ciel comes to you. She gommages. Obviously, Maëlle doesn't go. I mean, she gommages, but basically she's going out of the painting. So I don't really feel bad. Like, she's right. She's going to be okay. Monoko starts gommaging. Eskie starts gommaging. It's so sad. You have this hug between them. Those are real Verso's best friends. He painted them. He created them in his little, boy mind, because he wanted best friends in his canvas. It's so sad. Luna is absolutely pissed at you, and she just sits down and just watches you, stares you down as she gommages. Basically, and then the canvas is done. So then you go out into the real world, quote unquote, if you believe, what is real world, right? And you see the Desandra family in front of Verso's real life grave, and they are just like grieving as a family together, and the game ends. Right. Did you choose Verso's ending as well?
I did, and I it's hard to say there's a correct ending, but I think that one's it. That's the correct one. Because if you watch like the ending cinematics for Maëlle's, it feels very fake.
It feels
like, she, if you choose her, she uses her paintress powers to bring everybody back. You see Ciel, you see Loon, you see Gustave. She brings Gustave back.
Sophie.
They're all together. They're all enjoying each other's company. Everyone's laughing and having a good time. But then you see on stage, on a piano, Verso. And Verso looks extremely unhappy. He's being forced to play the piano, basically a metaphor. He's being forced to perform for her enjoyment. This last sliver of his soul is being forced to perform for her enjoyment. And it just feels like a very thin veneer of happiness. So yeah, it's hard to say. And listen, I think there's a very valid discussion to be had about, who's real and who's not in this story. What makes these characters real and those not? There's a totally valid discussion to be had there. But from my point of view, I think that's the Verso ending is the right one for me.
I thought so at the beginning. I thought so, like, the day I beat the game, I said, yes, this is the correct thing. Just like you, I pulled up a YouTube video and I was like, okay, let me see Miles' ending. And I was like, ugh, yikes, it feels bad. The more I think about it after finishing the game, the more I think I like Miles' ending better. Because what is real life? Basically, if I am a painted person, and I might as well could be right now, I would never allow my world to end. I would never allow my friends and family to die because of a tortured soul. Do you think I care? Hell no. I don't. We are such hypocrites. We are looking at this canvas like we're gods and we're so high and mighty and we're like, yes, of course, I'm going to, this is a VR, the Matrix. I'm going to unplug the Matrix. But by doing so, you're killing so many people. These people that, yes, we can debate if they're real or not, but from what we've experienced, they have a consciousness, they have innovation, they evolve, they love, they have families, they have children, and they are alive. And as a player, all of the relationships that I have built were with the people in the canvas, not with the people outside of it. So I'm team Mile ending now. I'm switching sides. I'm like, Verso, okay, get out of here. You can be my tortured soul forever. It's okay.
Okay, I like it. I think, spoiler alert, we've got some viewer questions that we're about to talk about that get into some of those themes. So I'm cutting you off right there. We got to save it for part 2.
We're going to take a small break. And as Ben said, we have so many viewer questions to get through. They're going to be super, super great. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Video Game Book Club in English this time, not in French. This is part 2 where we answer questions that the community has sent to us on our Discord. And if you want to join the club, the best way to do so is to join the Discord. So don't hesitate, join the Discord. We have all of these conversations and more every single day for every video game of the month in VGBC. Ben, because I chose this game, I'm going to ask the first question. The first question comes from Glass Shark from the Discord. How did you feel about the side quests? I beat the game prior to doing the main story side quests, and I actually felt it helped better contextualize the story beats than it would have if I did those before beating the game.
Yeah, it's a good question. I have multiple thoughts about this.
Okay.
So the way the game introduces the side quests is a little weird to me because you get access to the overworld very early and you get SKA and you start being able to access different areas. But every side area that you access, more or less, pretty much every side area, is way over leveled for you. If you go in it, you have no chance. There's a few that you can do earlier in the game, but for the most part, you cannot access any of the side content until Act 3. And when you get to Act 3, the game basically, like we discussed, the game just opens up. It says, here's the whole map. You can go anywhere with SKA now, and there's Lumiere. Go to Lumiere when you're ready to kick the story off. I went to Lumiere first because the game doesn't strictly do the video game thing where it brings up a text box on your screen and it says, "This is the point of no return." The game doesn't do that. It like it basically alludes to it. It says like, "Head for the final confrontation with Renoir at Lumiere," basically, or something like that. So it's there, but it's just not that stark. So for me, I was like, okay, well, I'll go there and like see what's going on before I do side stuff. And the final mission, the mission in Lumiere heading up to Renoir in the final fight, is balanced to where you are when you start Act 3. It's balanced to the level you're at. So, like, the enemy encounters feel like they should. They don't feel too hard. They don't feel too easy. It feels like that's the correct thing to be doing. But if you go through it, you essentially, the game ends and there's no, like, New Game Plus. Or actually, I think there is New Game Plus.
There
I'm
is a
not
New
sure.
Game Plus, yeah.
But like depending on the ending you picked, like I picked the Verso ending, so when you go back into the world, everyone's gone. It's just Verso. It's only Verso by himself. Nobody else is there.
Wait.
It's like very alone. What?
What?
That's true.
What do you mean? No.
Yeah.
No. No.
What are you talking about?
Like I beat the game, then I press continue, and then I'm back like in the right before the fight, and I can exit and do all the things that I want.
No, there's like that's like loading a previous save. If you continue with the same save file, Verso is by himself.
No, I pressed continue. I didn't do load. I swear, bro. They patched it, maybe. I pressed
maybe
continue,
it was a bug, but I don't think
and I
it
was right, like the last save. It just loaded the exact point before the fight, and I was like, okay. And then I just went back to continent and did a bunch of stuff.
Okay, maybe this is
That's
a bug.
crazy.
I don't know what's going on.
Wait, so you loaded back into the game and there was nothing?
There was not. Well, I mean, the game was still there. It was just only Verso by himself. Nobody else was there, and I thought that was intentional. I was like, yeah, I picked Verso. Everyone got erased. But I don't
Verso
know.
got erased. That's crazy. Maybe
yeah,
that's a little something.
I don't know. Maybe.
So what did you
happened.
do?
So I was like, okay, maybe I can just do stuff as Verso, but I was like quickly like I cannot do anything as just this character. So I reloaded a save before the boss fight, and then I went back and I did all the side encounters. And the side encounters are great. They're really interesting. The highlights, there's a painted version of Clair that you can find in the world that has a really great boss fight. There's Simon, this like punished warrior from the very first expedition who's been trapped under the monument this entire time, and he's probably the hardest fight in the game, I think, by far.
I think so, yeah.
There's really, really awesome open world encounters, but there's like this double-edged sword, because if you do all those open world encounters, then the final area of the game is totally trivialized for you. You're so over-leveled for it, and you basically breeze through it. So I loved the side content. I thought it was awesome, but I thought the way it was done was a little wonky and a little weird, and like didn't flow supernaturally.
I semi agree. I like it though. I think because of my time constraints, I went straight to the final encounter, and I agree with Glass Shark. I finished the game. I was able to reload normally, and then I started doing the side content, and I'm still doing it because I'm definitely not done with this game.
Yeah.
Even though I just finished it a couple of days ago, I'm gonna keep playing for a couple of weeks. Until I'm done with it, basically. And yeah, and everything that I'm doing now that I understand the story fully, that I've done my research, that I've done my reading, and that I'm doing this with you now, I'm going to enjoy all of the content post-game better than if I had done it before kind of deciding the fate of the canvas. So I completely agree. I think it adds, it contextualizes it better after you finish the game.
Right. Totally. All right. I will ask you the second question, also from Glass Shark. He asks, do you feel it goes beyond grief thematically? We've touched on like the very overarching theme of grief within the story and escaping from grief. But Glass Shark wants to know, do you think it goes beyond that? I picked up on ideas of poor coping mechanisms as a theme as well. We run from our problems into many different things like gaming, working out, eating, substance abuse. Could the painting stand for a metaphor for those as well?
Of course, 100%. I mean, like I said, this is a dysfunctional family, all of them dealing with grief in their own way. Aline not being able to let go and wanting to like uh, live with Verso, Aline being the mom, with Verso, her son, forever. Renoir projecting his anger and grief that Verso is dead by projecting it onto his wife and telling her, no, this is not the way you're supposed to grieve. Get out of this canvas. I'm going to destroy it. I never want to see it again. I never want to hear from it again, ever. Like, that's also a terrible way to cope with grief. You know, Clea kind of like being the like, I mean, I don't know much about Claire because a lot of her stuff is on the side content that I haven't done yet, but I know she has a huge part to play in this, which maybe you can touch on later. But anyways, everyone deals with it differently, and grief is extremely hard. Like, I've talked about it in the podcast before, but my dad died when I was 12, and Ben, if after my dad died, maybe even now, someone told me you can go into a canvas and like see him again, 100%. Like, why wouldn't I? 1,000%. It blinds you. We all experience it because it's natural. It's in our, like, you know, basically it's always going to happen because it's like a human thing that we will experience, and it's so tough. So it does a really good job. And yeah, grief sucks. Like, there's no right answer. It's the worst.
I 100% agree with that. And this is like an oddly topical thing with all of these new AI tools and these AI things that everybody is developing now. One thing I've seen is people using AI to like recreate videos or pictures of somebody from their past that's died. Maybe their mother or father, like you said, died when they were very young, and people using these AI tools to make, you know, videos of their dead family member. And that's such a sweet thing. And like you said, that temptation is so strong. But like the game, the potential for that for something like that, the potential for that to have a really damaging effect on you mentally if you allow yourself to get sucked into it is really strong, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
really oddly topical in a lot of things happening. And I totally echo what you said. I agree with Glass Shark about how this can be a stand-in for other coping mechanisms as well. I mean, we're the gamers here, right? We are playing this game to escape from our own stuff. That's true. So there's so many layers here. You've got the painted people, and then you've got the painters who created them, and then you have us who created the painters. And so it's like, there's so, like, who's real, who's not, who are we to say? It's such a complicated and emotional, theme that this game is trying to take on.
Yeah, 100%. Also, just for what it's worth, I don't think those AI things are good, and I don't think going into the painted world to see your is a good thing either, But I'm saying, like, it's the temptation is so strong that you would do it.
Yes, agreed.
Yes.
The next question is from Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, what is he?
I didn't know Kojima was in the Video Game Book Club Discord, but that's crazy, bro.
I was gonna say, I was like, what is going on?
The reach of VGBC is global, I guess.
Insane.
We got Hideo.
Thank you, Kojima-sama. I'll ask the question to Ben. What type of DLC, if any, would you like to see for Expedition 33?
It's a great question because I feel like they left the door open for a lot of it. Like, whether it's, one of the main pieces of side content in the game is the Endless Tower. And the Endless Tower is this, like, boss rush, essentially, where you climb all these different levels of harder and harder bosses. And in the Endless Tower, there seems to be, like, portals, basically, that seems like they could be used for DLC. So that would be, maybe a hub for where to access these different areas. And then, I mean, I feel like, I don't know if it's DLC or I don't know if it's a sequel, but they definitely left the door open for something because there's this huge bit of world building and lore that never gets addressed. We know about the painters, the people creating these canvases, but apparently there's some beef between the painters and the writers. And the writers are who burned the house down and killed Verso and scarred Alicia. So it's like, who are the writers, bro? What's their role in this? How are they, that for me is the biggest unanswered question. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's DLC. I don't know if it's a sequel, Expedition 32. But no, I don't know. But that to me seems like the most obvious option.
1,000%. I mean, I don't want that as DLC though, because I love this IP so much now that I would want that to be its own separate game. So I'm gonna put that to the side. But I do have 2 DLC ideas for Hideo Kojima-sama. Okay, the Gestro Village full potential needs to be Omega Unleashed. I'm talking, I want the casino to be fully functional. I want to be rolling the dice with my Gestro buddies. I want the jousting and like the kaiju Gestro fighting to be like a thing that you can do. I want that really bad. Maybe they can even expand on the arena, which I think there is a dark arena or something like that. So it can happen.
Yeah, there is.
I think, give me more. But, Ben, so I'm going to read it because I want to say it correctly. Additionally, I'm thinking, what if the Mael ending is the canon ending and she actually is losing her mind just like her dad predicted? Oh, no. And in that, she starts spilling all of the chrome out of her, and the other 50 or so expeditions start coming out one by one. And they are like evil, and like the bad chroma from Mael or like / Alicia is coming out of her, and you have to defeat them as they come out. It's kind of like a boss rush of all the other expeditions.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you read some of the expedition journals, but Expedition 60, the naked muscles would be super gnarly to fight. For sure. Obviously, Expedition 0 would be crazy. Expedition 34 would hit so hard, because they're the closest like friends, I guess, that Expedition 33 has, and you have to defeat them. Definitely. So anyways, I thought that would be good.
I love that. All right. Next question from Inferno Disco. What do you think is the sadder ending and why? If you were to be Gomage tomorrow, how would you spend your last day? And bonus question, what would your last meal be?
Okay. So this is a big one. Let's go one question.
Start from the beginning.
Yeah. So I kept going back and forth. This is a great question. I kept going back and forth between what ending is the saddest, either the Verso or the Mael. But I think there's 2 answers, but I'm gonna keep it to one so that I honor the question. I think Verso's ending is a lot sadder, because as a player, every relationship that I have, that I kind of like created, fictional relationship with all of these characters, all the characters that I love, Eske, Monoko, Luna, Ciel, they won't exist in Verso's ending, and I just am having trouble having that. Yeah. I want Eske, I want Monoko, I want Ciel, and I want Lune. I know that means, I don't know. I don't want it. I know the tortured soul and everything. I know that's whatever, but I think that version is so much more sad. So I want them to be alive. I want Mael's ending. Like I said earlier, I think even though it might not be morally correct, I don't think it's incorrect either. So I would go with that. Verso sadder, Mael, what I want. To recap, TLDR.
I agree with that, but I think it's based on the perspective. From the perspective of the player, Verso's ending is sadder because you're losing all of the characters that you've come to know throughout the game and love. From the perspective of the family, if we suspend our disbelief and we're looking purely from the family's perspective, Mael's ending is the saddest by far. Like, it's because this family is never going to move on from their grief. They're not only losing Verso, their mother is now weakened and maybe might die from extending her stay in the
skill
campus.
Issue, dude. Skill issue. Get better.
Mael is going to stay in the canvas, and same as her mother, like you said, she's going to lose her mind and sort of become detached from reality. And the result of that is that this family is never going to move on from their grief. They're all going to just continue down this dark path of revenge, of loathing, of hatred, and all of this stuff. So, yeah, I totally agree what you mean. How from our perspective, it seems like Versus is the saddest, but from the game perspective, I think Miles has to be for sure.
But as a painted person, I don't care about the gods. You know,
You're skipping
I
ahead,
don't.
bro. This is
I don't
the
care.
next question. You're skipping ahead.
All right. So if I were to be Gamache tomorrow, how would I spend my last day? So I wrote a little itinerary.
Okay.
First, to tell you Inferno Disco. First, I got really sad when I thought about this question, and I was like, I'm just gonna lay down all day and like look at my wife forever because this is so sad and I can't think about it. And I might do that, but I kind of pulled myself together and I said, you know what? I'm gonna make an itinerary. So here we go. 7 a.m. Go play tennis with Ben.
Let's go.
Yep. Let's go. Starting off the day strong, do some exercise. Final, last time I can kind of move my muscles, feel my body move. It would be great. 9 a.m. Start making my wife some Salvadorian breakfast and some coffee. I love to cook for her, and I love to cook her breakfast. 10:30 a.m. Spend some time writing some letters to my closest friends and family, and then I would put them in the mail. And then like a few days later, after I gomage, they'll receive it. It'll probably be super traumatic, but whatever. It's my
That's a
last
good
day,
idea.
so
Yeah.
I'll do that. At noon, I would go visit my grandma and my mom, and we would play some board games. My grandmother is 94, and she can only play one board game at this point, Rummy Cube, because that's the one she remembers the rules of. So we would play Rummy Cube for a little bit, maybe drink some coffee again. At 2 p.m., I would go to the park with my wife. We would have some sandwiches, and I don't know, we would just have some fun. Probably cry a lot. But I don't know if you've seen those videos where like you paint your partner and the partner paints you, but you can't look at it, and then you reveal it at the end. Maybe we could do something like that, but I'm sure it won't happen because we would be crying too much.
Yeah.
And then at 4, I go home and I start changing for the party. I start changing for the tunts. And I spend as much quality time with my wife as possible. But at 6:30, we go to my mom's house. We have a huge party with all of my friends and family. I imagine dancing, music, food, a lot of crying, drinks, more dancing, and more crying. And then right before midnight, I would have everyone do a countdown, because at midnight I'm gomaging. I want a New Year's countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, all the way to 1. And then I would kiss my wife, and then I'm done.
Wow.
And then I'm gone. It's over.
That's crazy. I love your itinerary. Love your itinerary. Yeah, I mean, I feel like my last day would look similar to the last day in the game. Like everybody is just, it's a somber mood. You're doing your best to go around and talk to everybody one last time, talk to all the people you've grown up with and you've met and made friends with, relationships potentially. Just, I feel like I would spend it in a similar way, just trying to reconnect with everybody one last time before the final goodbye. But I love your itinerary, and I'm definitely down for tennis, so let's do that.
Of course. It's funny, because if it is your last day, I would feel like everything that I do that isn't spending time with the people that I love is time like that I'm not spending well.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be too mopey. I think the itinerary is good. And then finally, what would my last meal be? This is really tough. But basically I would have a full Salvadorian meal. Give me some sweet plantains, plátanos maduros with some refried beans. Give me some pupusas with a lot of red sauce. And nowadays there's a little new green sauce coming out in the culinary Salvadorian world, so leave me a little bit of green sauce. Give me a lot of curtido in there. I want some tamales de lote. They're like these sweet tamales with some sour cream that you can put on top. I mean, it's not really sour cream, it's called crema. I would have some riguas. I would have some agua de Jamaica. Listen, I'm getting hungry just by talking right now. But yeah, just give me a full Salvadorian buffet almost, and I'll be happy.
I love that. I think I would sit down with just the biggest meat lovers pizza you've ever seen in your entire life. And I would just go animal mode on it.
That is so good.
Just all to myself, just down the hatch. I think that's what I'd be looking at.
Bro said meat. He said veggies. Who? Veggie. Right. There's veggies in the sauce.
Brother, I'm about to be gomaged. What do I care?
That is, I don't know what I expected, but that is not not it. That's so funny, dude.
There you go.
That's hilarious.
All right. Why don't you give me Joe's question?
Okay, so Joe, our number one fan, comes in with a bunch of questions, but I'm going to read them all together. So, how do you understand the idea of the painted people? Are their memories and actions and emotions real to you? Or is entering a painting just like wearing a really immersive VR headset? And then Dilly Pig from the Discord added to the question, and it goes like this. Or do you see the painting similar to religion in our world, where a God creates everything and everyone and gives them emotion and free will to live?
Yeah, a lot of layers to that onion to peel back. Starting from the basic question, the idea of the painted people, it's so difficult to put yourself in that perspective, right? But I think talking to you and talking through this helped me work through that a little bit. Like, okay. Like you said, if you're a painted person, maybe we're painted people. Yeah. What do I care? Does that make my relationship any different? Does that make my friendships any different? That doesn't affect me in any way. We could be living in a simulation right now. That doesn't affect the way I go about my life, right? Maybe if I knew it was a simulation, I would act differently. But as far as I know, I'm good, right? So yeah, and thinking of that from that perspective with the painted people, I totally understand why when they do find out that they're living in this painted world, they're like, I just want my family back. I want more time with my family. So yeah, it's like it thinking about this question almost it deals with like very philosophical things. And it was funny in the Discord when people asked this question, people were kind of getting into debates a little bit and talking about some of this stuff. And we found out that two of the Discord members, Joe and Glass Shark, have very philosophy heavy educations and backgrounds. And they were like, trading blows on all of these philosophical topics and all these different things. It was really entertaining to watch. But yeah, I mean, to put yourself in the position of a painted person is a really difficult thing to do, and it's impossible for us as the player, as the person, to say it's like the philosophy of solipsism in this world, right? How am I as a person supposed to know that you are also a person that thinks? From my perspective, all I know is me. I don't know that you have the same thought process, that you experience the world the same as I do. And it's the same with the painted people. Like we can't know that they have all these inner machinations. We see it, but we can't truly know it. So it's a very philosophical thing. And yeah, I think the point Dilly Pig made about the role of a god in this universe is a really apt one as well. Like I think, it is very, very analogous to me, the role of a god. And, the paintress basically is the god of this universe. She is painting everybody. We know that Renoir has some role in that as well, with gommaging everybody. But the paintress ultimately has control, and she locks away Renoir. She creates this fantasy world. She is the god of this world, and, is giving everyone the emotion and the free will that they have, like Dilly Pig said. So yeah, definitely an apt analogy and a super philosophical trip to try to unpack all of the ideas in this game, for sure.
Yeah, to first answer this question, I just want to say there's no right answer. So if you're having debates with other people about which ending is correct, just try to take a step back and say, man, there's no right answer. So like we can both be right, and you don't have to fight too much. But I went through phases, because I think, like Joe, immediately was like, okay, the painted people are not real. The real people are the painters, and the canvas world is fake. It is like an immersive VR situation, and they are like losing their minds inside of it, which is true. And I almost immediately detached from Lune and Ciel and Monoko and Eskie, and I was like, oh, I'm better than you. That's kind of almost right. Genuinely. I almost, that's how I felt. I was like, oh, I'm better than you. You guys are fake. I'm real. This is bad. I'm only thinking about the painter family, and the best thing for them is to move on, and the canvas needs to be erased. That's kind of like my mentality. But Ben, I don't know about you, but I'm not a painter, and I cannot create worlds. I can't. And more likely than not, I'm a painted person. So then I started flipping my thoughts into thinking, okay, if I'm a painted person and I am in Luna's shoes, in CL's shoes, what would I want? Obviously, I wouldn't give a crap about the painters, and all I would want is my family, my life, and this world that I experience now. And as a painted person myself, I have consciousness, or I think I do, and I'll assume that I do, and I assume that everyone around me has it too. I assume that everyone around me, just like me, can love, can think critically, has free will, and can do basically anything that we want. And yeah, I don't know. I go with that. Like, I think that I don't care about the tortured soul. If you are a god, you need to take accountability for the fact that you can create. You are responsible for this world that you have created and for the beings that literally exist because of you. And oh, your son died. Unlucky, bro. Like, you still need to take accountability. You still need to be responsible for this world. And I can't think about erasing it anymore. I was watching The Matrix the other day, which is hilarious. And in The Matrix, all of humanity is enslaved and they are living in a simulation. It's obviously slightly different than this. But I asked myself the question, in The Matrix, if there was a way to stop it super easy by just unplugging it, and then like the real world will be good, and then like, the Matrix wouldn't exist anymore, we wouldn't be enslaved, but all the people that are in the Matrix would die, would I do it? Could I have all of humanity's deaths in my hand if I unplug the Matrix? Because who knows if the people that are in that world are real, are painted or not? You can't know it, just like you're saying. You can't. Yeah. And so you have to assume that they are. And because of it, I basically, to go back to the question, that God has created everything, gave us emotion, gave us free will, and I will not have them erasing us just because they're sad.
Fair enough.
I mean, if it happens, it happens, right? I'm not a god. It can happen, whatever. But like, if I have the choice, I would say, no, don't do it.
Yeah. I just think it's such a credit to the game and the game makers that they are able to inspire these types of discussions with this game. Like there's so many layers, from the grief to the philosophy and from the choices you have to make. It's just so well done. So well done.
So well done. So well
I've got the last question. It's again from Kojima-san.
Kojima!
Who knew he was such an active member of the community? Yeah. But so Kojima-san asks, in the game, the Paintress, then Renoir, this is kind of dealing with some similar ideas. The Paintress, then Renoir, to an extent, function as gods that the party is trying to defy. Could we draw parallels between these two gods, or godlike final bosses found in other classical JRPGs, like a Final Fantasy, like a Shin Megami Tensei, or like a Xenoblade?
Dude, I love this question because I love those games that he describes. And I feel like the god creatures in this game are so much more tangible than the god or godlike creatures that you defeat in those Final Fantasy and like Shin Megami Tensei games. For example, in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, you have to fight Lucifer, and Lucifer is like obviously the Satan, but he's kind of a god, and he looks bananas, bro. He's gigantic. He has 6 wings. He has a bunch of arms, and he's just like a big being. And you feel so strong, and you finally defeat him, and he's gone forever, and you've defeated God, and you're like, better than God now. You've become so strong that like you've done it. You did it. But that's not the case with Clair Obscur. You don't really defeat God. You just kind of send them away. You shoo them out of the canvas, but they still have so much control over you, and they can erase you whenever they want. And so, sure, I defeated them, kind of, but really I have no power over these gods. Whereas in the other games, you do feel like you have so much power and that you're in control. But yeah, man, I don't know. Just the fact that they can delete that canvas whenever they want, it's scary. It's really a lot more tangible. Also, again, with like the way that they look, Renoir, Aline, Mael, Clea, they're just people, you know. Sure, like they can summon accents and puppets, but at the end of the day, they're just people. Like they just look so normal. So yeah, it's great. They did such a good job with like representing a god just like a person. Honestly, just like the last game that we played, a god is just a human in Small Saga.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think like Hideo says, and like you said, the the parallels are there, right? The parallels between the bosses in this game, the painters, and other big godlike bosses in other JRPGs are totally there. I think what really makes this game interesting is how they then humanize those gods, right? Because you're going through the first two acts of the game, like you're defying the gods, like he said, you're defying the gods, you're trying to defeat them to save everybody, but then you get, you defeat the paintress, you get kicked out of the canvas, and oh wait, that's not God, that's just mom, and mom happens to be a magical painter, and like everything we thought we knew is wrong. So it set, I feel like the parallels to those other godlike games really set you up for that kind of that heel turn, and that in the third act of the game, and the pulling the wool over your eyes, and the big twist of the game. So yeah, definitely lots of parallels, and I think they used them really well to deliver the narrative.
Ben, I have a small question for you.
Okay.
Where does Sandfall Interactive go from here? After creating this massive success, what's next for them, you think?
Dude, whatever they want. I like selfishly, I want more Clair Obscur because it's an unbelievable game. But I'm also like, there's been a lot of discourse about. We briefly alluded to it about the size of the studio, right? At first, everyone was like, "Oh, this was a small indie team, less than 30 people," and then everyone was like, "Wait, actually." There's like the core group of people, but there was a lot of other people helping as well, contractors and stuff. So there was like a lot of kind of discourse around that. But like at this point, what does it matter? Like they made an unbelievable game. The what matters is the product. And I think it's, they've given themselves the platform now. This is their first game, which is like crazy. To me. Absolutely crazy that they were able to deliver a game this good with their first effort. So from here, just keep cooking, bro. Like whatever you put out next, I'm buying. So yeah, do whatever you want.
What lovely feet.
Oh my gosh.
Ben, we have done it. There's no more questions from me, from you, or from all of our listeners. Thank you again for everyone who submitted a question. We love them. These were so good.
Yep.
But now, the final thing to do, Ben. Give me your 30-second review and your letter grade for Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
We've given out a lot of letter grades so far. We've reviewed a lot of games. I think the highest letter grade I've given out was an A for Nine Souls. I'm not sure if Nine Souls got an A+. I'll have to go back and look to it. This game is an A+ for me, for sure. I think if this game isn't an A+, then I'm not sure what is. So, unbelievable game. We already talked about how great the story is. The gameplay had me absolutely hooked. I was so frustrated at times playing on the hard difficulty with how many times I died, but man, when you nail everything, when you hit it and you finally beat that boss, it feels so good. The music, the visuals, everything was just done to such an unbelievable level. Yeah, if this isn't an A+, I don't know what is.
I could not agree more. This is a textbook A+. I adore this game. I love it so much. I feel like I'm just going to repeat everything that you said, but the story is gripping and you have no idea where it's going to lead you. There is so much content in this game if you want there to be. But also, just the main story and the main content is already incredible. The themes between the areas, the consistency, but the uniqueness of each of them, the epic fights that you have, the cinematic, like, final blows that you deal to these bosses, everything that it does it so well. Sure, there's a couple things that could be better, like the menuing and all that, but like genuinely, when you play a game this good, those like small little minute little grievances go out the door. They barely matter, because
Yeah.
every time I load this game and I start hearing that music, I know I'm about to have a good time.
Yeah.
Freaking loved it, and I'm going to officially stamp it an A+ from VGBC. Maybe the first we've ever given. Ben will confirm, and I'll put it in the description.
Let's go.
But yeah, stamp it. Achoo!
Boom.
And that does it for our conversation for Clair Obscur. That was whew, that was 2 hours 20, Ben. Jeez, don't you have things to do? Don't you have things to do?
Dude, I just got to talk about this game. It's that good. Yeah. I have to.
It's so good.
But JP, I mean, what an unbelievable game. But this is VGBC, baby. There's always a next game, and this month's game was a community vote. So every month we rotate, JP picks, I pick, and then the community picks. This month, the community voted. What did they pick, JP?
They picked Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, the 2017, I think, game, indie game that was picked up later by Xbox Studios because of its huge success. If you hear that, that is my cat. I'm really sorry. I think my cat is just excited about Hellblade.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I'll edit that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
My bad. It was started going feral at the door. What was I saying?
Something about Senua's Sacrifice. It got picked up by
Xbox Studios, and it looks. Wait 1 second. And it just looks like such a unique experience and such a good game, and I'm very, very glad that the community has picked it, and I honestly can't wait to get started with it. However, Ben, I still have a lot of Clair Obscur to play, but I'm definitely gonna dive right into.
Well, I think it's a relatively short game. I think it's like 10 hours total maximum for Hellblade, so you definitely have time. But yeah, from what I've seen, I mean, I remember seeing this game when it came out. It got a lot of praise for its art style, for its story. There's a really strong puzzling component too, which I know a lot of people in the Discord are excited for.
Oh, we're puzzle people.
Yeah, let's go. So yeah, I was very intrigued by this game when it came out, but I never played it. So yeah, I'm excited. Let's go. Let's play.
Me too. It's always exciting to play a game that people in the community either love or they're looking forward to playing so much. It just makes me excited, especially obviously if I haven't played the game, because it's going to be a new experience, a new conversation that I'm going to have with Benny and with all the members of the community, which happens every month. Like every time we play a game, there's so much conversation happening. There's these debates that Ben and I are having that are real. Like Ben changed his mind mid-podcast, guys. This is what VGPC does to somebody. And I know that when they listen to this, Joe is going to come in with a lot of more information, and maybe we'll flip-flop again. Maybe we'll be back in Verso side and not Mael's. But that will do it for us today. Thank you so much for listening and for being a part of Video Game Book Club. We appreciate all of you so much. And if you just discovered us on YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes, then please give us a, like, subscribe, follow, whatever. And we hope that you enjoyed this thoroughly just as much as we enjoyed it. Thank you. And we'll see you in about 15 days for an episode of The Checkpoint, where always we'll have more games to discuss, more banter between Ben and I, and we'll have a good time. Thank you very much. Bye.
Salut.